On January 22, 1901, Britain's Queen Victoria dies at age 81. But why has Victoria's marriage been long remembered? And why is she sometimes called the grandmother of Europe? Of England's 63 monarchs, only 8 have been women. Interestingly, the 2 who served the longest, Elizabeth II and Victoria, and perhaps the greatest, Elizabeth I, were all women. Although Britain has changed its rules to no longer favor males in its line of succession, the nation is unlikely to have another woman on the throne for quite a while, with King Charles III currently the monarch, and the next 2 in line, William and George, both being male. Victoria was born in London's Kensington Palace in 1819. She was descended from the German House of Hanover. Her mother and her governess were German, and she allegedly spoke English with a slight German accent in childhood, requiring private tutoring to purge her speech of that accent. In 1837, Victoria ascended to the throne. She was just 18. 2 years later, her first cousin, Albert, a German nobleman of the ducal house of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, visited the English court at Windsor. Victoria proposed to him 5 days later. They married in 1840, and Albert became a dominant force, serving as Victoria's private secretary. They built royal residences on the Isle of Wight and at Balmoral Castle in Scotland. They also held the first ever World's Fair at the famed Crystal Palace in London's Hyde Park. They had 9 children, including Edward VII, who would eventually succeed her as monarch. Albert died in 1861 of typhoid fever. He was just 42. Another 39 years passed before Victoria's own death in 1901. Victoria's reign was long enough that an entire historical era is named after her, the Victorian Age. She ruled for 63 years, the longest reign in Britain's history, until it is surpassed by her great-great-granddaughter, Elizabeth II, who wore the crown for 70 years. At the time of her death, Victoria had 37 surviving great-grandchildren, and her descendants' marriages to other monarchies give her the nickname Grandmother of Europe. In fact, the monarchs of 2 of the major powers of World War I were her progeny. King George V of Britain was her grandson, and Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany was another of her grandsons, her eldest, in fact. She was also related to the throne of another World War I power, Russia. Tsar Nicholas II's wife, Alexandria, was Victoria's granddaughter. That means the Romanov children, who were brutally murdered by the Bolsheviks during the Russian Revolution, were Victoria's great-grandchildren. On our 2025 trip to London, Mrs. Lewis and I visited Kensington Palace, the birthplace of Queen Victoria. The gardens and the rooms were beautiful. A huge monument to Victoria stands near the palace. We enjoyed seeing Queen Victoria's private chambers, and somehow happened onto a way to make it look like Mrs. Lewis was wearing a crown that was inside a glass case. She had to stand on a friend's feet to get at just the right height to make it work. Mrs. Lewis is not the tallest, but she's in good company with Queen Victoria, who is only 4'11". By the way, Mrs. Lewis wants me to make it clear that she is taller than Victoria. It was also Mrs. Lewis's birthday, and we had a great dinner at a restaurant in Kensington to celebrate with friends. I might have even blasted my operatic rendition of Happy Birthday for the occasion. Here are other events that happened today in history. In 1917, U.S. President Woodrow Wilson gives his Peace Without Victory speech before Congress. In 1931, American singer-songwriter Sam Cooke, the King of Soul, is born in Clarksdale, Mississippi. In 1973, the landmark Roe v. Wade decision establishes a woman's legal right to an abortion in the U.S. Also in 1973, just 4 years after leaving office, former U.S. President Lyndon B. Johnson dies at age 64. In 1980, physicist Andrei Sakharov is arrested in Moscow for criticizing the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. In 1998, Unabomber Ted Kaczynski pleads guilty to charges relating to multiple package bombings. In 2005, 58-year-old Donald Trump marries his third wife, Slovenian-born model Melania Naus, age 34. And now, it's time for our Today in History quiz. Where in the body is insulin produced? The pancreas, the liver, the kidneys, or the gallbladder? Liked learning about Queen Victoria? Then you'll love this one about a secret plot to blow up another English monarch centuries earlier. Tap the screen to keep the story going on Today in History.